Hello there, folks. My name is Spunks, and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Chat. This is a show where I break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed, and see how well each movie did. So let's get started. Number 5 was The Last Duel, opening to 4.7 million domestically and 8 million worldwide. So there is no way to sugarcoat this. This is a bad opening. Unlike the past couple of films that didn't really do the best, they had some sort of defense, like they were released on the same day as they were released on a streaming service, and then the same day they were released in theaters, or they were barely advertised. This is just a disaster, in all honesty. While I wouldn't say that the marketing was absent, as I certainly did see plenty of advertising for it. It just wasn't enough to convince people, I believe, to go check it out. And with it being only released in theaters, that's not a good sign as well. And I also think that it releasing in not just the same weekend as another big, huge movie, but in general, huge packed month. As usually in any other year, October would be lucky enough to see at least two big movies released in the month. Where this year, we've gotten so many big hits and huge blockbusters coming out. I felt like this kind of got lost in the shuffle, and unfortunately, it paid for that, as the film costed a whopping $100 million to make. And with this opening to this low of a number, that's not very good. Hopefully, it finds its audience. Hopefully, it can maintain the word of mouth it needs, because let's be honest, it's not going to make that money back. But hopefully, it can find a following through whichever means necessary. It was like the big movie on Twitter. Everyone was talking about how this movie was doing. So hopefully that helps it in some way, shape, or form, and it could like at least snag a couple awards at award movie season. But right now, things aren't looking too good for this movie, unfortunately. Number 4 was The Addams Family 2, making 7 million this weekend, bringing its domestic total to 42 million and its worldwide total to 58 million. So the films once again held very strong this weekend, falling just 30% from last weekend, which is exceptionally good, and is another case into how family films are still doing really well in terms of holds and word of mouth in the post-pandemic, and I think this film is no exception to that. And let's compare this film to other family films, shall we? Where it is now surpassed both Paw Patrol and Peter Rabbit 2 domestically, and is just sitting 4 million behind Tom and Jerry's domestic total, which I think it will surpass very soon. And I do believe if it continues to hold strong and the word of mouth is still really good on the film, I see it surpassing 50 million domestically at the very least, and becoming one of the bigger animated family films of the post-pandemic. Maybe it won't top those films, like it's definitely not going to surpass Space Jam domestically, and I don't think it's going to get to the Croods domestic total, but I can see it falling in between Raya and The Boss Baby, which would still be very good for the movie it is. And seeing how it's almost at 60 million worldwide, I can also see it surpassing 100 million worldwide. So yeah, this is another solid weekend for the film. It's still making the money it needs. There's still no reported budget that I'm aware of at the moment, but once again, it couldn't be much, and I wouldn't be surprised if it already surpassed its initial budget. And there are a lot of factors as to why it's doing well, it being the only kids movie out right now, though it will be interesting to see how well it does this weekend, as it's got its first formidable opponent in terms of family films, which we will talk about later. So we'll see how it does this weekend. But also, it's a Halloween movie, and look what month we're in, and Halloween is approaching very soon, and I do think the film will get a huge boost from that as well. So, once again, another solid week for the Addams Family too. Number 3 was Venom Let There Be Carnage, making 16 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of 168 million and a worldwide total of 283 million. So the film has now surpassed Quiet Place Part 2 to become the fourth biggest movie of the year domestically, and I definitely see it surpassing F9 The Fast Saga very soon, and I can even see it surpassing Black Widow domestically as well, considering how well it's doing and how strong the word of mouth and holds are. Don't think it's going to surpass Shang-Chi, because I feel like it's a little too early to say otherwise, but I can still see it surpassing 200 million given how huge the opening was, and once again, how strong word of mouth and how strong the holds are for this movie have been recently. And the movie is starting to pick up pace worldwide, as the film is now approaching 300 million worldwide, which is exceptional. I think it will become one of the bigger blockbusters of the year. I think it's starting to open in more regions, more countries around the world. Hopefully, it opens in China sooner, because the first one was really big in China, and that helped the first film a lot. So I think China will definitely help this new movie out a lot as well. So once again, another solid week for Venom. It's still doing very well. Not much more I can say on the matter. The film had a stronger hold this weekend, and it continues to be one of the biggest movies of the year. It surpassed its $110 million budget, and I'm certain it has probably doubled that. I'm not good at math, but I'm sure even if it hasn't already, it will do so very soon. And once again, good job. You made a movie that people really wanted to see, guys. So once again, good job, Venom. Number 2 was No Time to Die, making 23 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of 99 million and a worldwide total of 447 million. So in terms of other blockbusters, this held a lot better than most, just dropping 57% from last weekend, which is again a lot better, and I honestly think something that many would more than ask for a movie like this. And this now puts its domestic total just on the cusp of $100 million domestically, and it will definitely surpass that in like the next few hours or so, or maybe it already has. But once again, it will become the ninth film to do that, which is very good. But compared to everything else that has been releasing and surpassing this milestone, it seems that this movie is gonna be taking its time to be one of the bigger movies of the year. Don't get me wrong, this is still a huge hit domestically, at least, getting over 100 million right now while we're still in a pandemic, only being released in theaters. That's more than acceptable, especially when this is a film geared more towards older audiences, and the fact that they are still a little cautious about returning to the theaters and it's making this amount of money. I think that's at least acceptable enough to warrant praise. But it's definitely looking like it's going to take some time. Like, it's not going to be like Venom or Shang-Chi, where it's just gonna continually increase week by week and just keep breaking records as it goes along domestically, at least. And this one, we might just have to just let it take its time and wait and see what happens. As right now, it's still doing very well. It may not be as huge as Skyfall or even Spectre, but I think with given all of the delays and how long people have waited, this is more than enough. Now, worldwide, on the other hand, that's a completely different story, where the comparison between domestic and international is night and day, as this film is just crushing it internationally. It's about to surpass $500 million worldwide. That is insane. And I think its chances of coming close or even surpassing F9 worldwide have just increased. So I definitely think that Dom and his crew should definitely start watching their backs if they know what's good for them. But anyways, this movie is still crushing it at the box office, even with the domestic numbers not being as big as I think the studio hoped for. I still think these are really strong numbers, and I hope that it continues to do as well as it's doing. as I think it's a great movie, and I think many people are still encouraging others to go check it out. So, once again, I still have hopes that this movie will continue to do well, as it has been doing for the past couple weeks. And finally, let's end the video off with the number one movie of the weekend, and that was Halloween Kills, opening to 49 million domestically, and is sitting at 54 million worldwide. So this now continues the winning streak of October releases opening to number one, as this is another huge opening weekend for any film released in October. This film now holds the biggest opening weekend for any horror film released post-pandemic, topping Quiet Place Part 2's opening weekend by a mere $2 million, and is the biggest opening for any R-rated film since Bad Boys for Life from last year, which is also incredible, especially considering how receptions and reactions for the film were not all that kind. I know last week I said reactions started out a bit mixed, but as soon as the film came out, they just plummeted, and the film has been not receiving as nearly as much praise as the predecessor was. So it was surprising to see the film still doing as well as it did. This is a really solid opening weekend. And just like the Addams Family 2, this movie is going to get a major boost from it being Halloween time and it being the major Halloween themed movie right now, and also just the major horror film at the time right now. I know there's Last Night in Soho and Antlers, but they're not for another 2 weeks, so we're just going to let Michael have this for right now. But once again, I do think it will be interesting and curious to see how well it does next week, as once again, criticism has not been so kind to this movie. I think even on CinemaScore it received a B minus, and that is not as good as it sounds, especially for CinemaScore and a horror film. That's not what you want to see. You want to see something higher than that for something on CinemaScore. So it will be interesting to see how word of mouth and how the drop off is for this film. But right now, the movie is starting off really strong. It has doubled its budget already since the film costed only $20 million, just $10 million more than the last one. So things are looking, well, pretty good for Michael Myers and his return to the big screen. And those were the top 5 domestic box office results for this week, but we're not quite done yet, as we've got another week ahead of us and new movies hitting theaters this weekend. And once again, we got 2 major releases. I know The French Dispatch is also coming out, but that's getting a limited release and won't be expanding to wider releases and more theaters until next weekend, so I don't think it's really going to have a huge impact on the top 5 this weekend. So there's that. But as for the other 2 major releases hitting theaters this weekend, the first one is Ron's Gone Wrong. This is the latest new animated feature film to release in the past couple weeks, so it'll obviously form some sort of competition between Addams Family 2 and this. But also interesting to note is that not only is this the first animated film, but also the first family film in general to be given a theatrical-only release, meaning you can only see this movie in theaters, since both Spirit Untamed and Peter Rabbit 2 back in June. So this will be a very interesting case, as every other animated/family film released this year has been given some sort of hybrid release where you can be given the choice to see it in theaters or watch it at home. So it'll be interesting to see how well this movie does. Reviews have been really good, surprisingly good as a matter of fact. People are calling this movie one of the best animated films of the year, which is obviously a promising sign. And they have been promoting it really well, as they released the first trailer as early as June and even put out McDonald's toys as early as August, which was very strange for a movie that was coming out in October. But I guess Disney and 20th Century Fox have a lot of faith in the film, but we'll see how well it does this weekend. And the other main movie hitting theaters this weekend is Dune. this is arguably Warner Brothers' biggest movie of the year. Yes, bigger than Godzilla vs. Kong, Space Jam, The Suicide Squad, and even The Matrix, and that hasn't even come out yet. We still have another 2 months till that comes out, because this is easily the most anticipated film of the last 2 years, because it was originally supposed to come out last year, but you know. So that resulted in the film being pushed back to this year, and anticipation for the film, I believe, has since increased, with the trailers getting huge amounts of positive response from people who are excited to see it and are awaiting to see acclaimed director Denis Villeneuve's take on the story. And considering how highly anticipated this movie is, Warner Brothers has been promoting it like crazy, as they should. I've seen several ads and tons of promotions for the film pretty much for the last month and a half, which is very good, and the buzz for the film is also really good. I've seen tons and tons of people talking about it, and the film has also released in some countries internationally, and it's starting off really strong. It's around 120 million worldwide, which is a solid start for the film, especially since that it costed 165 million to make. And not to mention, there were also press screenings held throughout various parts of the country recently, and reactions and reviews for the film have been exceptional. This film has been praised to death, people calling it the next Star Wars, and one of, if not the best movie of the year. So while I don't think it's going to perform like Venom or Shang-Chi, I can definitely see it performing similar to No Time to Die or Halloween Kills, because it's not like that type of blockbuster, but I still see it performing really well, especially with how much they're promoting it and how much buzz there is with the film. But one thing that will affect the film in some way, shape, or form is the release. It is a Warner Brothers film, so it will be doing the hybrid release strategy, where it will be released in theaters and on HBO Max the same day. So that's obviously going to affect the film in some way, shape, or form. But we will see how well this movie does, as well as the rest of the films that land in the top 5 on the next Box Office Chat. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you guys think of the results? Were you satisfied, unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit that subscribe button. Follow me on all of the social media links right there. And until next time, guys, stay sharp.